So Megan Ashley is one of those persons who I've seen you cry so many times.
I cry a lot.
I feel like I know you very, very well. And one of the things that you're so big on is vulnerability. And that's where I want to start. It's the beginning of the year. How many of us have had a rough start? Rough? Some of us have not. Who has not had a rough start? This is great. We give God thanks for you. Tell me about what vulnerability means to you and why it's so close to your heart.
I think I had just always been a sensitive person. Like, I am super emotional. I've always been that way. I feel things very deeply. And I was raised by a woman who was just very honest. And so vulnerability just kind of came natural for me. And with my platform, I've noticed how much it's opened up people's hearts to be vulnerable with the Lord.
Speaking about vulnerability, and part of your vulnerability, part of what you speak about on a regular basis is your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost all women here, some of us mothers, some of us wives, some of us want to be mothers, but you have a unique situation in motherhood. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I have 3 boys. Any boy moms? Anybody? I absolutely love being a boy mom. I love it so much. And I have a 14-year-old who is towering over me. His name is Eli. And for anybody teenage boys? I'm in that.
I'm surprised that everybody's screaming. From what I'm a girl mom of 3 girls, and my eldest is 14, and boy moms have a very difficult task. But teenage boys in particular is hard.
Yeah, he has like a manly voice now, and like he's like he has chin hair, and like it's weird. It's weird right now. But he's the one that changed my life. And then I have Caleb, who is he'll be 13 this year, which is crazy to me. But he is my child who is diagnosed with autism and Fragile X. Anybody have ever heard of Fragile X syndrome? Anyone? Okay, I didn't either. I never heard of it until my son was diagnosed. And so basically what that is that for us as women, we have 2 X chromosomes, right? For men, they have an X and a Y chromosome. And so there is a dysfunction in the X chromosome, which the Y chromosome cannot make up for. And so he does not have the protein that produces brain development. So when Caleb was 2, he was diagnosed with autism. And then a year later, he was diagnosed with Fragile X syndrome.
What does that all mean in terms of the way you care for him? And what do you have to learn or relearn as a mother?
So if anybody's ever watched or followed my journey, I've talked about Caleb a lot because he really did change, like he changed my spiritual life. I wanted him so badly, like so badly. I had Eli, my ex-husband and I had him before we were married. And so I grew up in church. Any church kids? Anybody like grew up in church like all the time? Yeah, I was that kid that grew up in church all the time. My mom had me in prayer services and, you know, the meetings at the homes where the women were praying all night and the kids were upstairs falling asleep everywhere. Like, I grew up in church. And to get pregnant before I was married came with a lot of shame. And once I finally, and my ex-husband finally got married, I was like, okay, we're married now. We're in right standing with the Lord. Let's have a baby, and that will make up for the child that I had out of wedlock. And so I'm like begging God for this baby. I'm like, God, give me this baby, please. I'm like, we tried to get pregnant. I couldn't get pregnant. Over a year and a half, we tried. And I just kept begging God. And at the time, our church was going through a series called Contending for the Faith out of the book of Jude. And so I was praying, and I remember in church I was praying, begging God with all of my heart, like, please give me this baby, please give me this baby. And I felt and sensed that I heard him so clearly say, don't ask me again. And I was like...
In Jamaica, we call that a battle.
What do you call it?
Battle.
Okay.
Like the whole back up.
Oh yeah, back up.
Back
Yeah,
up.
that's what it was. It was like don't. And I was like, well, I mean, the Bible says pray without ceasing, and like why would make your request known? And he was like, I heard you. Don't ask me again. Pray for someone else. And so I started praying for other women who I knew were trying to have a baby as well. And so I prayed for them. And this was, oh my gosh, I want to say this was at the end of the year. So it had to be like November, December. And then in January or February, I found out I was pregnant. The next month, the next 2 months, the two women that I was praying for also got pregnant. So we got pregnant back to back to back. And so I had this baby, and I'm like, I finally got pregnant with a child that I wanted. I begged God, I prayed, I believed, and I got this baby. And I was just in heaven. I did all the things, the baby shower, and I painted the rooms, and I prepared and got all ready for Caleb. And he came out with these ice blue eyes, the most beautiful child I'd ever seen in my life. And here we are 2 years later, and he's not hitting milestones. He's not crawling, he's not walking, he's not babbling, he's not doing any of those things.
How soon after he was born did you recognize that? And I ask these questions because I know there may be some educators in the room, there may be mothers who have special needs children or nieces, nephews, that kind of thing. How soon, and I've often thought also that people are blinded to some of the things that are not happening, and you don't want to notice it.
Yeah, I think as mothers we can all identify with this idea that we are going, like the idea that we have of the child that we're carrying, right? And never ever do you think anything is going to be wrong. Right? So you have this beautiful vision of your child, and just like with Caleb, I had this beautiful vision of Caleb, and I saw him running around and playing football and playing a sport and talking and birthday parties and all these things. And so then when you are faced with the reality that that is not the case, what happens is you are thrusted into grief. And so a lot of times people think that you can only grieve something that is dead. Well, guess what? What you imagined in your head is dead. It doesn't mean that you don't have hope, and it doesn't mean that God can't do exceedingly and abundantly above all we can ever ask or think. He is the resurrection power. So I know if he rose Christ from the dead, he can certainly make my son talk. Right? Right? But the reality is that what happens when he doesn't? Read your word. Jesus didn't heal everybody. Does that make him less of who he says that he is? Does it mean that the resurrection power is no longer because he didn't decide to do what you wanted him to do when you wanted him to do it? No. Now you are faced with a task, like my mother was faced with a task, which she had me, I'm her only daughter. And she said that she used to be so filled with anxiety about me that God told her one day, he said, Yvette, that's my mom's name, Yvette. He said, Yvette, I want you to go in your mind, and I want you to imagine Megan in a casket. Whoa. He said, I want you to picture her dead, your only child. And then he said to her, will you still serve me? Now, I want everyone to do the same thing. It may not be the child, but I want you to think about the thing that you want the most. The thing that you desire the most. The thing that has your heart. The thing that has your affection. Go in your mind and imagine God says no. And then imagine him asking you, will you still serve me? Will you still believe that I am who I say that I am? And I think sometimes that we often have to ask ourselves that, because what happens is it reveals your heart. The Bible says that the heart is deceitful above all. Who can know it but God? The Bible says that from the issues of life flow from the heart. What we have to understand is that your heart hides from you.
Could you expand on that?
Your heart, because it's deceitful. Mm-hmm. So we're not always aware of the motives of our heart unless we ask God to search it. I don't always know the motives of my heart.
Right.
Right? That's why the Bible says that the word is sharper than any two-edged sword. It cuts to the intentions of the heart. That's why people stay away from this book. That's why you stay away from it. You don't want to be faced with the reality that you are utterly dependent on Him. You want to do it yourself, you want to do it your way, and this here, it cuts to the heart of that. And so just like with my son Caleb, I was faced with the reality that God, if my son, because my son is nonverbal, well, we have this thing in our house where we say he's not nonverbal, he's just he's non-conversational, I'll say that. He doesn't really want to have a conversation, but he says words here and there. But I had to be faced with the reality, just like my mother had to be faced with the reality when God brought it to her attention. If Caleb never talks, do you still love me? Am I still Lord over your life? Do you still believe that I am that I say that I am? And I think if we could practice, that's why when David said, search my heart, O Lord, right? That's that. Is search my heart. And if you find any wickedness in me, if you find anything that is not pleasing to you, gut it out of me. Because I want to love you from a pure place. And I want, and that puts you in the position that you are seeking Him and not just His hand.